Hi, and welcome to my second tutorial in the basic Photoshop series. In this tutorial we'll be looking at the selection tools and touching on the layer tools palette. First things first, we'll go to File, Open, and we'll pick the ducky image. This is located in on your C drive, Programs Files, Adobe CS, Photoshop CS, and the Samples folder. Once we've located that image, we'll click Open, and you're presented with the ducky image. This image is quite a useful image to show off the selection tools. When we open this image, or any other image that has a single layer, if we look in the Layers palette, you can see it's just a single layer, and it's locked as a single layer. In other words, it doesn't have any transparency attributes. To create this as a proper layer, we need to get rid of this little lock icon, and we do that by double clicking, and we get the new layer tab. Now it's always handy to name your layers. In this case we'll just name it layer 1, but as you get more used to using Photoshop and you create more and more layers, it's easy to get confused, so this will usually be a much more descriptive name, but layer 1 is fine for what we want at the moment. Click OK, and now you can tell this is a proper layer because if we click the eye icon, we can hide or show that particular layer. And by default, underneath that layer is nothing, it's transparent, and you can see this by default checkered background. So if we click the eye icon again to display the layer, and we'll have a look at selection tools. I'm not going to go into all these tools in very much detail, just the very basics. Now, any tool in the Photoshop tools palette that has a little arrow in the bottom right corner means that if you click and hold, it'll have a little sub-menu with various other tools that you can see. In this case, we'll leave it at the rectangular marquee tool, and on the image we'll click and drag a rectangle. Now you can see your selection by what's called marching ants. This is your selection area, and we can click and move your selection area around, or if we go on the move tool, we can click and actually pull the selection away, or cut it out. And you can see this by the scissors. If you see there's no scissors. If you see there is a little scissors icon on your cursor. You're effectively cutting and moving your selection set. To undo that, Control Z. To do multiple undos, it's Control Alt Z. So we create that selection again, leave it on the selection tool, and we move that selection. Click on the move tool, and we effectively cut it out. Control Z to undo. If we go back to the rectangular marquee tool, and inside the selection you can see that the icon is a certain icon, and outside you can see it's just the crosshairs. If we press Shift, can you see the little plus sign? By pressing Shift while we're on the marquee selection tool, we're going to add to the selection. And alternatively, if we press Alt, we're going to take away from the selection. If we go again on the move tool or on the selection tool, we can move that selection about. Or if we go into the move tool, we're effectively cutting it out. Control Z to undo that. Another way to cut that selected area out is by going to Edit, Cut, which effectively removes it. And if we go to Edit, Paste, we've pasted it back, not in its correct position, but it's back nevertheless. And if we look in the Layers palette, we can see now we've created a second layer that has our selection inside that second layer. Our first layer, we've cut part of it out. Our second layer, that's where it resides. Now this is very similar to the old animation methods used, where they had an initial background on a blank sheet of paper and then drawings created on acetate sheets over the top, and there could have been a number of these acetate sheets with different elements of the final image. This is how the layers work within Photoshop. Again, we can hide that layer. Now if we wanted to put that back to the way it was, we can control click what's happening there. Okay, now that we have those two layers, we can click and highlight the second layer and rename it layer 2, and if we wanted to recombine these two layers with the second layer linked, second layer selected, we can click this box which shows up like a chain link, and go into layer, merge linked layers. We've now combined that layer back to the way it was initially. It's taken the top layer's name, so we can again double click and rename that back to layer 1. Now we use the rectangular marquee tool. The same applies really to the elliptical marquee tool. Make us click and drag to make a selection. You can use Shift key to add to the selection, and the Alt key to minus from the selection. Go through the same process as we did previously, and go to select and deselect, or we can select and Control D, which will do the same. The same for the single row, which will actually give you, if you just click, it will give you a row of pixels from one end, from left to right, 1 pixel high. Single column will give you a row of a selection 1 pixel wide from top to bottom. Select and deselect that.